Hey everyone, this is Angel with Tech Tutelage, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to check out GitHub remote private repository from the command line using HTTPS connection and how to push back the code to your GitHub remote repository after you have made some changes to it. To be able to follow along, you're going to need to have a GitHub account, Git installed on your system, and at least one repository. If you need help with any of these three requirements, go ahead and check out my YouTube channel. Under playlists, there will be a playlist called GitHub Tutorials, or you can also go ahead and click on that information card in the upper right corner in this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe for my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. To start, you want to go ahead and log into your GitHub account and then go to the repository that you want to check out. In my case, this will be this Hello World repository, and as you can see, this is a private repository. To download this repository, you're going to need to get the URL. You're going to have to go here and click on this code button, and then in here, make sure you select HTTPS since we're going to be using an HTTPS connection, and you can go ahead and copy this link from here. Once you have your link, you can open your command line, and once you have your command line open, you can go ahead and check out your repository. When I check out repository for a very first time, I like to create a directory called GitHub, or you can call it anything you want. It's going to be a directory that's going to hold all of my repositories. I think it's a good practice to keep it separately from the rest of your directories. So right now I'm in my home directory, and here I'm going to make a directory called GitHub. And then I'm going to go into that directory, and in here's where I'm going to clone all my repositories. So again, this is something optional. I think it's a good idea to keep it separate from the rest of your stuff, but you don't have to really do this step. Once you're in that directory, all you have to do is run the following command. So it's going to be git clone and then followed by the URL that you got from your GitHub account. When we run this command, it's going to fail. And the reason why is because we're downloading a private repository. And a few years back, GitHub made it so in order to check out private repository, you need to have a personal access token. It used to be where you can just run it here and enter your username and password. TechTut. And then my password, but it will fail, and that's because nowadays you need to have this personal access token. So I just kind of wanted to show you that just straight download for private repository like this would not work. So the next thing we want to do then is go ahead and get ourselves a personal access token. To do that, you want to go back to your GitHub account, and then here you want to click on that little picture here. This is your profile picture. Yours may look different, but up in this right corner, and then go click on settings, and then scroll all the way down and go to developer settings. And then here you're going to go and click on personal access tokens. And then you're going to go ahead and click on tokens classic. And then here on the right side, you're going to click on generate new token and then generate new token classic. Then it's going to ask you for your password. And once you authenticate, here you can create your new personal access token. You can call it anything you want. In my case, I'm just going to call it repo since it's going to be token that will only have access to manage my repository. So I'm just going to call it repo. Again, you can call it any name. Here you can give it an expiration date. It's safer to have it to expire, but in this case, I don't really care. So I'm just going to say no expiration. And then down here, select that repo scope. And again, it depends what type of access you want to give it. But in my case, all I care about is this full control over my private repositories. So I'm just going to select this, and then you can go ahead, scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on generate token. Once you have the token generated, make sure that you copy it and put it in a safe place. You don't want anyone to have access to it, since that will give them access to your repository, and your repository is private, so I'm assuming you don't want people to have access to what's on it. So make sure you have it someplace safe and someplace that's accessible to you, because this will be the last time you see this personal token. If you lose it, you won't be able to access your repository unless come here and generate a new. So once you have your token in your clipboard, you can go ahead and try to check out your repository again. So I'm going to go back here to my command line, and I'm going to go ahead and run that same git clone command, but I'm going to go up here right in front of where it says GitHub. Right here, I'm going to put that @ symbol, and I'm going to put my token in front of that @ symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. And so basically you're going to end up with having this HTTPS : // and then you're going to have your access token @ and then you're going to have the rest of your URL. And once you have this entered like this, you can go ahead and hit enter, and that will go ahead and clone your repository. So now if I list my directory here, you're going to see that I have one repository that's called Hello World. And if I go into that repository, you can see that I had my .git file, and then I have a license and readme.md. Now, if you're not aware, that git file is where the configuration for the repository is, and this is what makes it appear as a repository for Git. And then these two files are the two files that actually are in my repository. So if I go back here in GitHub and I go and click on the Hello World repository, you're going to see that I have a license and readme.md files. So I'm going to go back to my command line and I'm going to make some changes here in this repository. So what I'm going to do is, let's say we're going to delete one file. So let's delete the license file. So I'm going to say rm license. So that's going to remove the license file. And if I list the directory again, I'm only going to be left with the readme file. Then I'm going to go in and edit the readme file. I'm going to go in like this, and then I'm going to just add an extra line. So I'm going to say this line is from CLI, and then I'm going to save it here. And then let's add a file. So I'm going to create a file here. I'm going to call it file1 txt. And then in that file, I'm going to say this is my file. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then I'm going to create another file. So I'm going to call this file2, and again I'm going to call it txt extension, and then here I'm going to say this file will not be tracked. So the reason I'm making this second file is we're going to create also a gitignore file, and what this gitignore file does is you can put files in that you don't want them to be tracked. So those files will live on your local repository, but they won't be pushed up in your remote repository in GitHub. So if there are certain files that you don't want them to go up there, you can use that gitignore file. So we're going to do this so we can test that as well. So once we have all those files here, I'm going to go ahead and list this directory again, so we can see now we have the readme file that we edited, the file1 that's going to be file that we're going to push up to our remote repository, and then we have file2. This will be the file that we're going to add to our gitignore file. Now, to make a gitignore file, if you don't have one already, all you have to do is create a file called .gitignore. So we're going to do nano.gitignore, and if you have that file existing already, it will open it. Otherwise, it will just generate a new file for you. So in my case, I did not have a file. So I'm going to go ahead and enter here the file that I wanted to be ignored. In this case, file2. So once we commit all of our changes and push them up to our remote repository on GitHub, this file will be excluded from all of them. And you can also exclude files here with wildcards. So for example, you can say something like this: file, and then asterisk, and then txt. So that will do all the files that have the name file followed by anything else that are .txt, or you can just do, let's say, star.txt. So that will exclude all the text files. So basically, yeah, you can just do any combinations with wildcards here. So that's how it works. In our case, we're just going to leave this file to txt. So I'm going to go ahead and save here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and push our files up to our remote repository. There are 3 steps for you to take before your files go up to GitHub. The easiest way to do is always remember is run git status. When you run git status, that will check your local repository and it will tell you in what status it is and what's the next step that needs to be taken. So if you run git status, you're going to see here that we have one deleted file, one file that was modified, and 2 new files, file1 and gitignore. Now, if you notice, we actually have 3 new files. We have file2, but that file is not showing here because that file is in that gitignore. So you can see how this gitignore works, right? It just excludes the file that's listed in there from being tracked. And then down here, it tells you what's the next step to do. So you can go ahead and add the files, or you can use the git commit add command. So it combines the 2 commands at one, and it will add them and commit them for you at the same time. But I'm going to do it in 2 separate commands. That way you can see what the actual process is. So I'm going to say git add, and you can add each file individually. In my case, I'm just going to do dot, and that way it will add like my whole directory. So I'm going to go ahead and do git add, and then I'm going to hit enter. So that's going to add my current directory. And then again, you can run git status. And now it tells you that you have 4 files that are ready to be committed. So the next command that we need to run is git commit. So git commit, and then you can do -m and give it a comment. So the comment will be added 1 file and git ignore, just so I remember what I did. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And when you run this for a very first time, you're going to get this message here that Git does know who you are. What Git wants you is to add to the configuration file a name and an email address. So that way, when you push your changes up to GitHub, it knows which user did it. So all you have to do is go ahead here and copy these two commands. So I'm going to go ahead, copy this one and run it. And I'm going to just replace this email here with my email. And then you can go ahead and copy this one. And then you can give a name for your user. And once you have these two run, then you can go ahead and actually commit it. And once you have your files committed, they're ready to be pushed. But again, you can run git status just to confirm that. And as you can see here, it tells that your branch is ahead of the main branch by one commit, and you can use git push to publish all of your commits. So we're going to go ahead and run git push, and all of your files will get pushed to your remote repository up on GitHub. So now I'm going to go back to my GitHub account here, and I'm going to refresh this page, and I should see all the changes that we made to our code. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh here. And as you can see, now we have the gitignore file in which we have listed that file 2. And that's why when we go back now here, we won't see file 2. We're only going to see file 1. And that file has that this is my file message that we put in it. And then we also have that readme file, and if I open it, you're going to be able to see the change that we made here. So this line is from CLI, and I misspelled from. So now that I misspelled from, I guess it's a good opportunity to show you that you can go here and make a change. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to say this line is from CLI, and I'm going to put a dot at the end of the sentence. And down here for a comment, I'm going to say fixed misspelled word. And then I'm going to go ahead and commit the change. And now that file here is fixed. But if you go down here to your local repository, let me clean my screen and cat this file. So that was in my readme file. You can see that here is still with an error, right? Instead of M, I have an N. So to get the updated version of your repository, all you have to do is run git pull. And that will go and reach out to your remote repository on GitHub, and we pull down all the changes that have happened since the time you committed last. So I'm going to go ahead and execute that command. And as you can see, it saw that there was a one file change with one insertion and one deletion. So let's go ahead and cat that readme file. And there you go, you can see the difference here. This line is from CLI. And this is how you update your local repository from the repository that you have on the remote GitHub. And I think this is all for today. Again, don't forget to go ahead and subscribe for my channel if you want to see more of my videos. Also, if you have any questions, don't forget to post it in the comment section under the video. Thanks for watching and have a great day.